As she finished talking, the intense expression on her face reverted back to the happy-go-lucky feeling she had before. Did she boost her level of intelligence just for that conversation? I felt like that was probably the case. If she didn't, then the difference in how she talked up till now would be too huge. If that was how she normally was, I would have never gotten my item box, let alone the other services she would provide me. Or maybe all that was the service she was talking about. Well, no matter. All I could do now was give it my all in taking on this girl in front of me. Yes, I understand. Well, it's not like I understood everything, actually, but I feel like I have a handle on most of it. So thank you very much. With that, I've asked everything I wanted to. All I have left is one final request. Swallowing my spit with a gulp, I asked the question. Please be my friend. The goddess froze up, her mouth hanging open. It's fine, right? I don't have a single friend in this world. I only had 2 in the last one, even. I went woozy for just a moment, but I planted my feet firmly on the ground and waited it out. Alright, I've gotten the hang of this now. But even though I was finally used to it, I'd never get another chance to put that experience to use. Probably. Well, here I was in one of those other worlds I'd heard so much about. It was supposed to be called Fernie or something. After Celeste came out of her cosmic entity mode, she happily agreed to be my friend and threw her arms around me. It seemed her galaxy brain powers only lasted for when she was explaining everything to me back then. Once she finished, she just went back to her previous happy-go-lucky self. She spent a good amount of time rubbing up against me, having me think up new ways of her getting closer to God and a whole bunch of other things as well. When I was finally freed from our little bonding session, that was when I found myself standing in this new world. It looked like I was standing about halfway up some sort of small hill, and I could see sparse clumps of trees all around me. There was a town way off in the distance, but it wasn't surrounded by walls or anything. Seemed like it was full of fairly normal-looking buildings as far as I could tell. I should probably be aiming for the town for now, but before that, I wanted to check out my new body. I'd be spending a long time with it after all, so I wanted to be thorough about it. Had to make sure to send my complaints to Celeste if there was anything wrong with it, and I could ask for extra stuff at the same time. Just call me Kaoru Almighty. I doubt Celeste was going to give me her powers or anything if I kept complaining about her though. With that, I began running all sorts of tests on myself, including stretching out, jumping around, patting myself down in a bunch of different places, stuff like that. The results. It seemed like I really was back to the body I had when I was 15 years old. I couldn't check my face since I didn't have a mirror or anything, but it at least felt right from what I could tell. Still, you didn't have to get every single little detail right, Celeste. I wouldn't have minded a bit more strength or some more endurance, or, you know, a little bust enhancement wouldn't have hurt. I would have been completely fine with that. Damn it. Height-wise, I thought there was maybe a 1 centimeter difference between 15-year-old me and me at 22, so it didn't feel like much had changed. I was about 157 centimeters, or a little under 5 feet 2 inches for all you people stateside. I was a little bit heavier back then too. Instead of thinking about maintaining my body, I was more focused on things like club activities. And my appetite. Man, I was so young then. Super serious. What I really had beef with was my chest. Yeah, back when I was 22 I could barely call myself a B-cup. But now, sadly enough, I was a solid A. No, this was a rarity. Only 1 in 20 people in Japan had the privilege of bearing this status nowadays. Celeste was the same too, so I guess that made us matching now. Maybe that was why she was so happy when I asked her if we could be friends. Wait, Celeste had the ability to change how she looked to whatever she wanted to, didn't she? Grr. Hold on, just calm down, me. Now wasn't the time to get angry at her, yet. Deep breaths, deep breaths. For the time being, the body check was over. Next up, a powers check. I thought I'd give my most important ability a shot. Potion creation. I stuck out my right hand and concentrated. Give me a health potion that tastes like a sports drink. I tried imagining the container being one of those small plastic bottles you saw everywhere for drinks. The next instant, I held a bottle from a famous drink company in my right hand, filled to the brim with the exact contents I'd been thinking of. After twisting off the cap and taking a swig, I found it really did have the slightly bittersweet taste of a sports drink. I wasn't tired or anything, so I wasn't really sure if it was healing me at all, but I was going to put my faith in Celeste and believe it must have some sort of effect if I could already do this much. The next thing I needed to check was my item box, of course. Item box open. I concentrated and poured everything I had into focusing my mind as I stuck my right hand out. It wasn't like I really had to do all that, apparently, but since this was my momentous first use of the item box, I wanted to make it seem as cool as possible. Slipping my wrist inside an invisible space in the air, a list of my inventory appeared inside my head. Inventory. Empty. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It wasn't like I was hoping for you to put something in there as a little extra service, Celeste. No, not at all. Like, seriously, I wasn't disappointed in the slightest. It wasn't like I was hoping for some sort of divine sword that split heaven and earth, or a whole bunch of useful items for every situation you could think of to be stuffed in there for me. Nope, not this girl. Next time I saw Celeste, I thought I'd tell her all about a certain arrogant king of heroes who loved his flashy gold armor. And maybe some stories about a certain blue cat thing with a huge pocket on its belly for good measure. Anyway, it looked like that was that for now. I wouldn't know about the language thing until I met some other people first. Alright, time to head to that town. I bet I'll come across some type of road if I just go down this hill. I took a big stretch, then lightly brushed off my pants before finally setting off. I made sure to have Celeste change my outfit to the type of clothes you'd find in this world before she sent me here. I mean, it'd be somewhat of a problem for me if she just tossed me into this world stark naked, so I made doubly sure to ask her for clothes. I felt like I could have been in danger if I didn't. Seriously, knowing what she was like, I had a really bad feeling about it. My danger senses were going into overdrive, I tell you. After walking for a little while, I noticed a little squirrelish creature staring at me from one of the tree branches above me. Hey, you up there in the tree. Is this the right way to get to a town with people in it? As I gave it a nonchalant smile, the small critter replied. Yep, that's right. Just go straight ahead. Oh, thanks a bunch. You really helped me out. Hey, no problem. I walked in silence for a bit, eventually coming to a stop and placing both hands on a nearby tree. I then proceeded to bash my head against it repeatedly. Understand, read, and write in any language. Understand, read, and write. In any language. Celeste. Why did you decide to go that far with my special service power? That little guy from before couldn't write too, could he? I was beginning to get a little freaked out by that, so I was just going to stop thinking now. The sun had already gotten pretty low in the sky. The town looked close back on the hill, but it still seemed like I had a ways to go. A little while later, I finally found something that resembled a highway leading to town, but it was pretty far away. I'd heard things looked much closer than they really were when you were somewhere high up, so I guess this was a prime example of that. I always loved reading, so I had a pretty good repertoire of random knowledge. I even chose a science major in college, and I had a deep respect for all the mad scientists out there who sacrificed everything for the sake of their research. But I had no intention of doing anything like that myself though. I was starting to get pretty thirsty along the way, not to mention tired, so I ended up downing a bunch more potions along the way. They actually helped me feel more energized, and I killed two birds with one stone since they slaked my thirst too. There was a drug back on Earth that could get rid of all your fatigue as well. I wasn't there. What was it called again? I remembered it was a combination of the Greek words for love and labor, so Filippo. I was getting freaked out again, so I stopped thinking. Again. This potion doesn't have any weird side effects to it, right? Also, if Celeste was supposed to drop me close to town, how come she'd put me so far away? It was dangerous to leave things to Celeste. I knew she probably didn't mean anything bad by it, but her basis for judgment was a bit screwy, to say the least. Well, the way she saw things was probably way different than a human would, so I guess that was just how it was. That didn't change the fact that it still felt dangerous to leave it up to her, so I was just going to try and do my best to get through everything on my own. For now, I was just relieved with the fact that I made sure to specify I actually wanted clothes. And I was a little miffed that I'd made it this far with no resistance whatsoever. At this rate, it seemed totally possible that cats were going to end up being the villains here or something. It was a little bit after the sun had set, there appeared to only be one in this world, that I finally made it into town. It was just before it was completely dark outside, so I'd say I was cutting it pretty close. There were no walls surrounding the town, which meant there were no gatekeepers here either. It seemed like people could come and go as they pleased. It wasn't like it was the royal capital or a huge bustling city or anything. It was just a small rural town that didn't hold any strategic value whatsoever. I'd bet there weren't really any benefits for using all the money you'd need to build the walls surrounding the town. The costs to maintain it, paying the people necessary to staff it, and just the general inconvenience of it all. I'd be in a bit of a rut if you needed some sort of ID to get in and out of town, so I was thankful about that. I went ahead and made 4 healing potions before I headed into town. 3 blue ones and a single yellow one. I wanted to make more than that, but I was empty-handed at the moment. I didn't even have a bag to carry my stuff in. I might get myself into trouble if I suddenly used my item box without knowing what did and didn't fly in this world, and I would look like a total weirdo if I just carried it in my hands. I ended up shoving 2 potions in each of the chest pockets on my clothes. I arranged them by color according to a game I had played a long time ago. There were 3 types of healing potions: blue, yellow, and red, with each one more potent and valuable than the last. Since it was so easy to tell them apart at a glance, I decided to adopt those colors for my own labeling system as well. The blue ones were just your run-of-the-mill potions that could heal your everyday external wounds like ashes, bruises, that sort of thing. Yellow was your intermediate potions, and fixed up things like internal damage and broken bones in addition to the other wounds the blue could. Finally, you had your red potions, which were powerful enough to bring you back from the brink of death, but you'd want to wait and see if the situation could be solved by taking a blue or yellow potion first. My policy would be to at least wait a day before deciding to use a red potion. I'd make my goal for today to get enough money for dinner and a place to sleep, so there was no reason for me to take any risks while I still didn't know up from down in this world. I headed along the main road until I found an inn so I could check out their rates. A night at the inn with dinner and breakfast cost 4 silver coins. I guessed a silver coin was something like 1,000 yen then? If that was the case, then I guessed my blue potions were worth 1 coin and my yellow one about 5. Well, I should be fine for tonight so long as I couldn't scrounge up about 5 coins. I decided to head to the Hunter's Guild right away after asking a nearby hunter where it was. Well, I'd say the building in front of me definitely seemed like the Hunter's Guild. There was a mark on the front with a sword and a spear clashing with each other, and the sign on the front said, Hunter's Guild. Alright, I can actually read it. The place had swinging doors that looked like they were right out of a western flick. I didn't know if it was because it was nighttime or what, but those swinging doors were the only things being kept open, while the normal doors were shut tight. I bet it was the opposite during the day, so long as it wasn't winter or if the weather was bad or something. It was kinda hard to get myself to go inside. But if I didn't go in there, then I could say goodbye to having dinner and a place to sleep tonight. I steeled myself and finally made my way through the door. I shouted out, "Anyone here?" in my mind, but in reality, I slipped in through the barely ajar doors without saying a word. Life was cruel, however. and the bell hanging above the door made the loudest jangling sound you could imagine as I snuck inside, causing everyone in the room to stare directly at the entrance to the guild and at me. It looked like working hours were over for most of the receptionists here, since most of the counters were completely devoid of people. Only one of them was still open. I wondered if that was the nighttime service counter or something, but no one was lined up there. In stark contrast with this side, the area just behind the counters was roaring with activity. There were tons of tables all lined up over there, with people who were probably hunters stuffing their faces and downing all kinds of alcohol as they chatted away with each other. It looked like there was some sort of counter way in the back providing food and drinks for everyone. Yeah, these kinds of places always seem to be set up like this. Wait, shouldn't this be the part where someone says, "Hey, this ain't no place for a kid," or something? Or maybe, "Hey there, little missy, how's about pouring us another glass of the good stuff?" You know, something like that. Huh? Were they ignoring me? I mean, it wasn't like I wanted to get involved or anything. It was just, I had my pride as a woman. And I felt like that pride was slowly being chipped away. No, it was nothing. I was just going to head over to that counter now like a good girl. And so here I was. I'd made it to the nighttime counter. The receptionist here looked pretty intense, and she gave off a harsh vibe. But I bet she didn't want to hear that from me, especially when people always told me that I was the one who always had a harsh look in her eyes. There were no other counters open right now, so it looked like I had to take my chances with the scary lady. Excuse me. She's totally glaring at me. But still, I couldn't back down now. My dinner and my place to stay were both riding on this. All those potions I drank earlier were sloshing around in my stomach right now, but I wanted some actual, solid food, dang it. Oh, and a soft bed as well, of course. Is it possible for me to sell potions here? You're kidding me, right? Eep. What are potions? Some type of medicine? Go to the apothecary if that's what you have. Why would you even bring them to the Hunters Guild? Are you stupid or something? Shut down. Right, so this wasn't the right place to sell potions. Then that meant I had to at least try and move on to the next step. I'm sorry, this is my first time leaving my hometown in the sticks, so I don't really know anything. If I don't sell these, I won't be able to eat or find a place to stay tonight. Where could I find the apothecary and the doctor? Yeah, fat chance either of them would be open right now. Besides, the doctor is out of town for a while since he's off to a nearby village, and the apothecary went to a neighboring town to see a couple that just got married. Seems like they had a kid or something or other. I'd say they'll probably both be back sometime tomorrow or the next day though. Ah, it's all over. I slumped down to the floor, my dreams of hot food and a warm bed fading into nothingness. Why didn't Celeste have any money ready for me before she set me loose here? The answer was simple, of course. Because she was Celeste. Damn it, damn it, damn me. My tears were completely blurring my vision at this point. Thankfully for me, it looked like the sharp-eyed receptionist had a heart of gold after all. After watching my miserable breakdown, she took pity on me and came to my rescue. Alright, guess there's no way around it. I'm in charge of the place till morning, so I'll use my authority to help you out a little. I'll say it now, but this is only for tonight, got it? There's no next time for this, even for the days I'm on duty again. Why yes, I got it. Thank you very much. A drowning woman would take any lifeline she could get, and it was safe to say I was pretty desperate right now. Then first off, I'll let you borrow one of the folding beds we use for employees who need some emergency shut-eye. I can't actually let you into the staff-only area or anything like that, so you'll have to make do with one of the corners around here. If you come crying to me about how the floorboards are too hard or if your blanket is too thin or something, I'm tossing you back out on the streets. You understood. Next up is food. I don't plan on giving you any kind of money, so you'll have to do something about that on your own. I'll be nice and give you permission to work here for the night, so go earn your dinner money by selling your potions or whatever to those hunters back there. You could also run errands, rub their shoulders, or pour them drinks or something. That could also be a good way to get them to share some of their food with you. However, the receptionist slammed a hand on the counter for emphasis. However, no selling your body, got that? If you do, I'll beat you and the guy who paid for you half to death before kicking you out, so make sure that sits tight in that pretty little head of yours. She glared even harder at me with those piercing eyes of hers. Even though I was able to pull off being pretty firm with a god in Celeste, I wasn't about to push my luck with the receptionist from hell here. I bowed over and over to express my gratitude before scurrying off to the dining hall packed with tipsy patrons. If the doctor and apothecary were out of town, then I should have plenty of chances to peddle my potions to everyone. The receptionist's shouts rang throughout the dining hall, clearly audible for everyone to hear. Despite the harsh look in her eyes, the hunters were all totally on board for doing anything they could to help the cute young girl with her plight. Not to mention they were all pretty used to women with harsh expressions thanks to the receptionist Gilda. Kaoru looked to be about 15 years old, but that was only if she was still in Japan. The people from the land of the rising sun, Westerners who were 12 or 13, looked like high schoolers or even college students if they were unlucky enough. The opposite was also true, of course. There were plenty of cases where Westerners would mistake fully grown Japanese women for children. To this day, the fact they would be given all sorts of candy and treats when traveling abroad never ceased to baffle these women. In this world, people looked at Kaoru like she was around 12 years old at best, the sharp-eyed receptionist included. If she actually did look to be 15 or older, there was a chance everyone here wouldn't have been this nice to her. It was possible they could have told her to put up an empty stomach for a night and just sleep outside since she was an adult. No matter what world you ended up in, it seemed like children and all the beautiful people were still the only ones to get special treatment. Would anyone care for a potion? The blue potions can heal any type of cut or wound, and they only cost 1 silver coin. The yellow one can cure everything from broken bones to internal damage, all for the low price of 5 silver coins. That was the sales pitch Kaoru tried going with, but all she got from the hunters she was trying to help were bitter smiles. A single silver coin could buy about 3 or 4 mugs of ale, and all it would take was another silver coin to get you a decent amount of food and other snacks. No matter how much they wanted to help her, they weren't about to cough up a silver coin for medicine, a kit probably made out of weeds or something. They might have been able to at least laugh it off and call it some type of diet supplement if she made it cheaper, but that would only be if it was for a few copper coins. They would have sprung for a small silver coin at most. Kaoru was beginning to panic once she realized the potions she was so proud of probably weren't going to sell. Why can't I sell these? There seems to be plenty of injured hunters here from what I can see. Were they planning on having their friends heal them up with magic later? Maybe they had to rely on potions when they were on the job and didn't have a healer in their party, but they could get healed on the cheap from another party's healer when they were back in town. It was true you probably didn't need to worry about MP once you were back, and they may be able to get fixed up for the same price it would cost to treat them to a drink or something. Crap, I made my prices too high. But, wait. They should need potions for when they're out there on the job too. I could be making all sorts of trouble for myself if I make them too cheap. What should I do? A tough, middle-aged hunter called out to Kaoru as she agonized over her next move. Hey, little missy, think you could rub my right leg for me? I think I might have been a bit too rough with it today since it feels like it could cramp up any second. Man, that'd hurt like hell if it did. How about we make your payment these 2 sausages here? 1 leg rub coming right up. Kaoru happily bounded over to the man out of sheer joy. She'd always given her mom and dad massages for tips, so she was fairly confident in her skills. The hunter was just about the same age as her dad as well, so she didn't shy away from doing it at all. It was almost the exact same feeling as when she would do it to her dad. Besides, who could say if the man really was feeling like he would cramp up or if he simply made it up as an excuse to give Kaoru something to eat? No matter the reason, the hunter's eyes were half closed in pure bliss as Kaoru put her all into massaging his leg, which was around the time the other hunters started getting rowdy as they saw that. "Do me next. My shoulders need a good rubbin', and I'll give ya 2 of these chicken skewers for it. I've got a quarter of a boar steak for ya if ya can give me a back massage. It's all gonna get stuck in her throat if you lot just keep giving her food. Here, I've got a mug of grape juice for you. That's way more valuable than these scraps they keep trying to give you. Damn. Then, I've got fruit. Go ahead and ask me for anything you want. Oh, but peaches are out of the question. Those things are way too expensive. Oh, come on, you lazy bum." It's the hunter's spirit to act tough. Man up and get the girl a peach, damn it. But the fierce-looking receptionist took a look back at the dining hall, somewhat raising her eyebrows. It even looked like the corners of her mouth were pulled up ever so slightly. Perhaps you could call that a smile on her part, though there were very few hunters who'd believe that theory. That went especially for those who knew just what type of personality she had. After a short while of Kaoru being fed by the hunters, she finally managed to say, "Please, no more food. I'm stuffed, so I'll take copper coins if you can spare them," to which the hunters gladly obliged. Suddenly, the doors to the guild were flung wide open. It happened a little while after Kaoru had eaten her fill and was starting to get paid in copper coins. A female hunter who looked to be in her mid-20s came bursting in the guild, shouting, "Someone show me where a doctor is. I've got someone seriously wounded here. Tell them to get their clinic open." Just a second later, a man around his early 30s with a well-defined physique rushed in carrying another blood-soaked man on his back. They were followed by an archer who looked like he had just turned 20, who was carrying a sword and some armor which probably belonged to the injured man. "He got done in by a gray bear," the man shouted as he carried his wounded comrade. "Please, we have to hurry." The receptionist came running out from behind the counter, her usual intimidating demeanor replaced by a more serious expression on her face. Facing the 4 who just came in, she told them the one thing they didn't want to hear. "Doctor's gone to one of the nearby settlements and won't return for some time. The apothecary's also left for a neighboring town. I dunno if they'll return by tomorrow, or sometime later than that. All the hunters here are familiar with emergency first aid techniques, so our only hope is to cooperate with them while using any medicinal herbs you may have on hand." Expressions of despair clouded the party members' faces. Anyone here could tell it was obvious these weren't the type of wounds that could be handled by amateurs. They laid the injured man down on a blanket spread out on one of the tables. Standing around in a daze,